We're now halfway through Zeptember, and it's been a busy and exciting month. We saw one album release from Robert Plant this week. We have a book release from Jimmy Page later this month. Next week is an album release for Jason Bonham, who's also not far away from touring. And John Paul Jones has even appeared on stage this month, despite them Crooked Vultures being on hiatus. So everybody's been staying very active, and there's a lot to cover in this mid-Zeptember update. So let's get right to it. Band of Joy is out, the new album by Robert Plant. We got a special preview of it from NPR's All Songs Considered, which had the full album streaming in its entirety. I did a little poll on Facebook asking Lemon Squeezing's visitors whether they would still buy the album after they heard it. Most people said, after hearing it before its release, that they'd be ready to get their copies on release day. So, now that the album's out, I'm starting to get some feedback. This is an anonymous comment posted on my website on Thursday morning. It says in part, "I just listened to Band of Joy for the first time and it's great. It doesn't have to be weighted next to a Led Zeppelin album because it isn't one. It doesn't have to measure up in that way." The commenter goes on to say, but if they, meaning Led Zeppelin, would make a new album, it would have to measure up. And it would fail. These guys aren't the same anymore. They're not 25-year-old golden gods anymore. And to pretend that, well, just look at how sad the Rolling Stones have become. That's one person's opinion, and I'd like to get your feedback too. You can give me your feedback by leaving a comment at LedZeppelinNews.com, where we have a new review of the Band of Joy album, or on our Facebook page. Speaking of new releases, Jimmy Page has been getting an awful lot of publicity for his book, Jimmy Page on Jimmy Page. Keep in mind it's not an ebook, it's not a little paperback, it's a luxury book with a leather-bound cover, a slipcase, 550 pages, 600 photographs, produced in limited quantities, individually signed and numbered by Jimmy Page himself. This is a work of art, a limited edition product, meant to go into the hands of collectors who can afford it, and they'll be paying for it. There have been a lot of media reports criticizing Jimmy for releasing an expensive autobiography, and the headline writers can't even decide how much the book is. Some headlines say it costs somewhere in the $400 range, others as much as $700. Why the dispute over what the price actually is? Let's look it up. If you go to www.jimmypagebook.com, it's a microsite specific to the book, and it's hosted by Genesis Publications. You can buy the book today for £445. Have Google convert that for you? And it's $695.98. That's exactly what it costs. Well, plus shipping, of course. Bucks Burnett writes in a comment on Tight But Loose's page on Facebook, "Yes, the Page book is expensive, but it will be exquisite beyond compare. And does the man who wrote Kashmir deserve any less of a treatment? I urge anyone wanting this book to consider selling off some personal items, CDs, albums, other books, whatever makes it possible for you to afford. Now is the time to try. It will quickly go out of print and soar in value. And in a year, $700 will sound cheap. Good luck to everyone who wants a copy. Make a sacrifice." On the other side is Led Zepp fan on the guitar forum at mylespaul.com, who summed up the opposite viewpoint by writing, "For that price, he'd better deliver it to my house and read it to me." Jason Bonham has a few things going on. For one, he's about to go on tour next month with Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Experience, which we'll be hearing more about soon. Also, the 25th of Zeptember is, of course, the 30th anniversary of when he and the rest of the world lost rock's greatest drummer, his father, John Bonham. Jason will be marking the occasion at a concert in LA. There's been a bit of publicity about that show, but before all that, Jason has already been out promoting the imminent release of the debut album from his band, Black Country Communion. Jason met up in New York with Joe Bonamassa, who plays guitar and handles some of the vocals, along with Glenn Hughes, who does most of the singing and also plays bass. Glenn's a powerful singer, as you'll hear on their album. Here's a clip of what you can expect to hear from Black Country Communion.
I am a messenger, This is my prophecy. I'm going back to the black country.
Glenn Hughes there, singing his heart out on the song Black Country from the album Black Country by the band Black Country Communion. The album hits stores on Monday, the 20th of Zeptember in the UK, and a day later in the US. I had the chance to speak with Glenn earlier this month before he left his California home for his publicity tour. Here's a bit of what we talked about.
Basically the songs were written A, in my studio, or B, in Joe's studio. And then we brought them into Shangri-La Studios in Malibu, where we showed them to Jason Derrick. The reason why these songs sort of go on a little bit and there's that vibe of that, psychedelia, whatever you want to call it, it's just that we wanted to let it run and let it sort of, like we used to do in the 70s. It was kind of that way, We didn't want it wrapped up in a pretty little box. It wanted to be a little bit rough around the edges, so this is what we get.
These guys are certainly gearing up to tour. They did an in-studio performance in New York, the same weekend Robert was in town, actually promoting the release of his own disc, Band of Joy. They have announced, Black Country Communion have announced a secret show in London, which they will play on the 20th of September, their album release day. And there are sure to be some additional surprises along the way. Derek Sherinian is currently on tour. Joe Bonamassa goes back on his solo tour soon, and the same with Glenn Hughes, another solo tour for him soon. Details have yet to be formally announced for a Black Country Communion tour together. They assure us that it'll happen at some point next year. And of course, starting next month, Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience kicks off, first in Canada. He's divulged a lot about his concert tour, saying he's going to be playing Led Zeppelin songs as a way of remembering his father, reflecting on his own life journey growing up surrounded by Led Zeppelin and losing his dad at age 14. He said they'll have video screens at the show so he can duet with his dad on Moby Dick and When the Levee Breaks. There will be various drum kits and other things to make concertgoers feel like they're at a Led Zeppelin concert. Of course, the story continues with the triumphal O2 Arena reunion concert where Jason played in 2007. Jason is telling his own story, pointing out it's not the Led Zeppelin story. The tour kicks off and ends in British Columbia, Canada, and circles around Canada and the US. I'm told to expect further tour dates, but I'm not told who's going to be joining Jason in the lineup. That's something he says he intends to keep secret until they actually go on stage for the first date in October. So, Jason Bonham's getting ready for about 30 tour dates in North America. Robert Plant's just been out playing and promoting his album with UK and European dates to take place for the rest of the year, with a possible return to the US to be announced around January. John Paul Jones was out until recently with Them Crooked Vultures, a year after their band came out of nowhere to surprise people with a post-Lollapalooza gig in Chicago. They played a number of festivals for a good 12-month span, and evidently it wasn't enough for John Paul Jones. He's already made 2 unannounced festival appearances since the Vultures hiatus. The first came in August when he sat in on a large ensemble playing a tune from the Buena Vista Social Club. And then early in Zeptember came his second post-Vultures performance, this time sitting in with an avant-garde band from Sweden at the Punkt Festival. The story there goes that the bass player of the group Super Silent had just left the band, and John Paul Jones just happened to be there, ready and willing to do some improvising with the group. And it being John Paul Jones, they couldn't turn him down. A good time was had by all. No word yet what else John Paul Jones might be up to, and Them Crooked Vultures could always resurface at any point. But for now, Josh Homme has some business with Queens of the Stone Age to attend to, and Dave Grohl also has a little band called Foo Fighters, so there's no rush on getting back together. One other story is that in the middle of some publicity in the US in conjunction with the release of Band of Joy, Robert Plant uttered a term that some have found racially insensitive. Here he is during a brief interview on the Today Show, seconds before playing his single, Angel Dance.
Yes, before you joined that other, where you started that other band, as you call it.
Yeah. So it was a great moment for us British guys. We didn't really have the musical knowledge that you guys have got here, but we tapped as much American spook music as we could and as much blues, mixed it up, and nobody liked it. And so
some Twitter users and people on online forums said they were offended by the term spook music, interpreting it as a racist insult against African American people. Others have justified it by saying what he meant to say was spooky music, meaning mysterious or psychedelic music, having nothing to do with any particular race, but just uniquely American. Either way, this has not developed into a national storyline with anybody calling for Robert Plant's head on a platter. In my opinion, given the source and the full context of the clip, it was a clunky thing to say, but not a reflection on his character. That's it for this mid-Zeptember news update from Lemon Squeezings, but before I leave you, I'd also like to mention an audience poll taking place right now, asking you to vote for your favorite Led Zeppelin songs. It's sponsored by Carol Miller's Get the Lead Out, for which I work as a consultant. You can go to www.ledzepponline.com and submit your answers to the question, what are your favorite Zepp songs? And you'll be automatically entered to win some goodies from the show, including a Led Zeppelin box set, some swag like this shirt that I have. There's a nice laptop case that looks the same. Just go to Led Zepp Online for all the contest rules, a list of prizes, and to cast your ballot. The top Led Zeppelin songs, as voted on by you, will then be announced on an upcoming episode of Carol Miller's Get the Lead Out. If you want to find a station near you carrying the show, again, check out www.ledzepponline.com. I'm Steve the Lemon Sauer, wishing you a happy Zeptember. Rock and roll.